This is something I've been meaning to do for a while, so today's the day. I'm going to tour you all around my garden and show you all of the different fruit trees and shrubs and vines and everything that I'm growing. You'll see some things are really established and have been fruiting well for the past few years. Some things are brand new and I just planted them. And some things have never really taken off and I'm still kind of figuring it out. So welcome to my garden, and be sure if you make it to the end of the video, please let me know in the comments what else you think I should be growing in my garden. So I'm going to start out with all of my fruit trees, and this is the only one that I currently have in my front yard, and it's getting pretty big. It's a golden sweet apricot tree, and I've been really happy with how well this has gone, especially because if you know apricots, they can be pretty tricky and only give you a crop maybe once every 4 or 5 years. And now this is the second year in a row that I've had a crop, and I don't know if you can tell behind me, you can see just a little bit, it is loaded. I'm gonna have definitely some videos coming up all about harvesting apricots and just some more apricot stuff because I've got so many. I've got a few fruit trees in this area, starting right here with my Fuyu persimmon tree. And if you can see, it is blooming. The blooms are really cool. They're sort of hidden underneath the branches. They grow down. But they're these really pretty yellowish white flowers that are gonna turn into a bunch of delicious persimmons. So I had a crop on this a couple years ago, but since then, I've had a real problem with fruit dropping, which is very typical for a self-pollinating persimmon tree like Fuyu. If it doesn't have a pollination partner, it will very quickly drop its fruit when it gets stressed out, as it has tended to do in our really hot summers. So if I'm not exceptionally good about keeping it regularly watered, it's very quick to drop the fruit. So I've had some issues with that. I'm determined to figure it out. The other thing is it's sort of lopsided. For some reason, all of the branches are growing on one side of the tree and there's nothing growing on this side. I don't know. I've tried to prune it to encourage growth on the other side. If you have any suggestions, I am here for it. Please let me know what you think I should do. Now, if we keep going over here, next I have this brown turkey fig, and this is one of the first things I planted when I moved here, and it is super happy. It's doing great. Right now it has a lot of little baby figlets. I'll show you close up. And I've just had great success with this. They love pretty dry conditions. They love my sandy soil. Fig trees are not afraid of heat. It's a Mediterranean plant. My biggest issue is keeping the figs away from squirrels. That has been the biggest problem. Last year I got to eat one fig out of the hundreds that were growing on this tree, and it still makes me mad. So I'm hoping I can figure that out this year. And then the last one in this little area of my garden is this wonderful pomegranate tree. This one's new. I've only had it in the ground less than a year, so it has not bloomed yet. It may still be getting established in my landscape. I have yet to have any fruit on it. I'm really hopeful. I was hoping this would be the year, but I can wait if I need to, and just try to set it up for success in the future. But I'm really excited about the fruit on this one. So moving away from this pomegranate tree, if we go over to this corner, the sunnier part of my yard, this is where I have my 3 stone fruit trees, hopefully more in the future. But for right now, I have these 2 Loring peach trees, and they've been in the ground for a few years, and they've been doing great. They're both loaded down with peaches right now. The biggest issue I've had with these is just we have really high disease and pest pressure here. And so I have lost peaches in the past depending on not only things like late frosts, but just pest issues. So still trying to figure that out. So far, so good. I'm really, really hopeful that this year is the year that I get that really epic peach harvest that I've been waiting for. And then right next to them, I have one Santa Rosa plum tree, which is a self-pollinating variety, but I haven't really had a good crop up to this year. I feel like it's just taken a little while to get it going, but it seems to be doing great this year. I've got a lot of new growth, and there actually is a decent amount of fruit on here, you can see. So I'm hopeful that I'm going to get to see what these taste like. And I'm happy to see that, yes, it is indeed self-pollinating, although I'm sure it would do much better if I had a second plum tree nearby. So this would be one of my more experimental things. This is a cherry tree. It's specifically a Benton sweet cherry tree. By the way, don't do what I did. Don't leave your tag on. I really shouldn't have done that. But it's a sweet cherry tree. Typically, cherry trees don't grow in my zone. I'm in the hotter part of zone 8B, right on the border of zone 9. But this one one's supposed to be pretty heat and disease tolerant, which is why I'm giving it a try. And it's also self-pollinating. But this is another new tree. I've had it less than a year. It's leafed out really beautifully. It's growing well. I have no idea if I'm gonna get any fruit this year. We're just gonna see. But I'm still really curious to see if I can grow cherries in East Texas. I mean, you never know, right? And then over here by the peach trees is the last of my fruit trees. And this is my little baby apple espaliers that I'm just getting started. So this one over here is Anna apple. And I planted it last year. It did great its first year. It's just now waking up for the spring. So I'm really anxious to see how well it does the second year of kind of getting the espalier shape established. And then over next to it, I actually had to replant this other one. This is called Einschiemer. I think that's how you say it. And the first one, I think it had some transplant shock, or it just wasn't a very good tree that I'd selected. And so I had to replant this just earlier this spring, and it's waking up. And pretty soon I'm gonna start to train it along the wires. So keep your eyes out for that. But this is one of the things I'm most excited about in my entire garden is espalier, because I feel like it's an underutilized way to make the most out of small backyard spaces. And it's a little bit mystifying for people, myself included. As I started to look into it, I realized it's not really that difficult. At least I don't think so. I'll keep you posted on that, but so far it's not, and it's been so rewarding and it's so beautiful. So this is one of my favorite parts of my garden, and definitely one of the things I'm most excited about. Over here next to the fence that leads to my backyard is my little blackberry patch. I currently have like 4 or 5 blackberry bushes, and that honestly is giving me a ton of fruit. This is probably one of the things so far that has been most successful for me. They take very little care, and I haven't really fertilized. I almost never supplementally water unless it's really, really hot. And they seem to like my soil, and they love the sun that we get. So I've gotten some really delicious fruit off of these. So this is the biggest one. This is a Navajo blackberry. I've got 3 of those. If we follow this way, a couple smaller ones, and then on the end is a blackberry called Sweetie Pie, which blooms a little bit earlier, fruits a little bit earlier, and the blackberries are still delicious, not quite as large and sweet as the Navajo, but I like that I have fruit longer throughout the summer. And that plant has these beautiful pink flowers. And then the Navajo, as you can see, has these big fluffy white blossoms. So now as we come into the backyard, the next thing we're gonna hit is my grapevine. This is a razzmatazz grapevine, that's what it's called, and I've got it climbing on my big grape arbor here. Razzmatazz is actually a hybrid between a muscadine grape and a regular table grape. And muscadines are native to my area, so I know that they can withstand the heat and humidity and disease and things that we find in this area. I'm really excited about it. It's supposed to have the hardiness of a muscadine and some of the other qualities, like the fact that it's late blooming, which means it might actually make it through without having frost damage, but with some of the fruit characteristics of a table grape. They're supposed to be small, but really tasty. So I'm excited about this. It should pretty rapidly fill up this entire grape arbor. And then we come along, we get to my little strawberry patch, which is admittedly a little bit sparsely planted right now. I don't know if you can see. I only have about 5 or 6 plants because I kind of got this started late in the season, and that's all I could readily find of strawberries that I knew would do well in my area. So this is an experimental year, and I've already gotten a few berries, and man, are they good. But I've got Early Glow, and a few plants over here are Purple Wonder. And then I also have, in a couple hanging baskets on either side of the grape arbor, a couple of other strawberry plants that are nameless. I have no idea what they are. I just picked them up randomly one day from a store. So I'm excited. This is one of the areas I really want to expand next year. Growing strawberries, also challenging in my area because the pests will just devour them. So a lot of people grow strawberries as annuals where I am in East Texas, and maybe in other areas of the South where they suffer with the same heat and humidity for a huge part of the year. So that's what I'm going to try. I'm going to do some experimenting and see if I can sort of over summer these plants and then replant them in the fall. I'm going to try a few different things, but so far I've figured out that it is definitely worth doing. And then coming around to the other side of my garden, I have a new raspberry patch where I have some raspberry bushes just beginning to grow. So the next plan of action is to build a trellis to support them as they grow. I've got, again, a challenging crop to grow here in Texas, but I know I can do it. I'll probably have to protect them under some shade cloth to protect them from the heat of the summer, because a lot of raspberry plants just can't handle the really intense southern sun and heat. So I'm anticipating having to do that, but the first step is to build a trellis to support them as they grow. But they're doing great so far. I've got blossoms. I'm growing, let's see, Dorman Red and Caroline. Those are two that are shown to grow really well in my area. And then I got another one just to try for fun, which is called Anne, I believe. It's a golden raspberry. So we're gonna see how that goes. And then also in this section is my newest addition to my fruit garden, which is a passion fruit vine. I don't know if you can see it way down there. It's very small right now because I just planted it. It's just barely getting started, but I built this nice big trellis for it to climb on. It is called, I believe, Frederick's. It's a purple passion fruit, self-pollinating and very vigorous growing, very productive fruiting. So that's another thing I'm excited for. Last but not least, in the berry department, I am growing some elderberries. Again, this is another experiment. It's not a typical fruit for my area, but these plants that I chose are hardy through zone 8, and I've got them kind of planted in a semi-shady area, which I think will protect it from the really strong afternoon sun. And so far this spring, they are exploding. And elderberries is one of the plants that I think can work really, really well as a landscape plant, because it's this beautiful kind of shrubby bush that has these beautiful white blossoms, and then of course later the berries. So I've got it incorporated into my landscape. But then I also have here my little blueberry patch. I've got 3 blueberry varieties. These are all rabbit eye blueberries. I have Austin, Premier, and Climax. And they're just, I got them in the ground last fall, so they're just starting this spring. I've left a few clusters of berries on. You can watch my video on picking off the fruit its first year if you're interested in that. So I have just a couple clusters that I left on so that I could have a taste of these berries when they ripen in just a couple months. And now I'm going to show you a few of the potted fruit trees that I have. And I really don't have very many because I only have limited space to be able to protect them over the winter. So until I can make some sort of greenhouse or something, I'm limited to the number of potted fruit trees I can have. So what I mostly have is potted citrus trees, because in my zone it's just a little bit too cold for most citrus varieties to be planted in the ground. Believe me, I know, because I've tried. So these live outside most of the year, and then come winter, I bring them into the garage or the shed or something like that, just to protect them for the worst of the winter weather. So this one is a pink variegated lemon tree, and it is exactly that. You can see it has these beautiful variegated leaves, and then the fruit themselves, when they come out, they are essentially yellow with green stripes as they ripen, and then when you cut into them, the flesh is pink, pale pink. They're so pretty. They're really delicious. They basically taste like a regular lemon, but if you've never had a homegrown lemon, you will be shocked at the difference in the juiciness and the flavor that you get out of homegrown citrus. So I highly, highly recommend this one, and it's so pretty. And then over here in the next corner of my garden, I have a key lime tree, and it is good for more than just pies, although that is absolutely my favorite dessert in the whole world. Also good for gin and tonics and all sorts of things. But one of the things I like about this tree is that it grows just tons and tons of limes because they're so small. It can handle growing a lot of fruit, so it's a good space saver if you're worried about space. And then over here, I have an improved Meyer lemon tree. And this guy gave me tons of fruit. Still not real big, but I got about 20 huge Meyer lemons off of it last season. Not super hard to care for. If you can see, the blossoms are really, really pretty. All citrus blossoms are. But again, I'm hopeful and really excited about the harvest on this one this year. And I have to say, I think if I had to recommend one fruit tree for you to grow, this would be the one I would recommend, because it's beautiful year-round, it's pretty easy to care for, and the fruit is just awesome. So Meyer lemon. And then my last citrus tree is a blood orange tree, and it has just exploded with growth this year, but there's also a ton of baby fruit on here, so I think I'm going to get a pretty good harvest out of the sky this year, and I just moved him to a new pot, which I think has helped a lot because now he has more room for the roots to grow, which will support the fruit better. All good things, all things that we want. And then the very last fruit I want to show you in my garden, this is the only annual fruit that I'm growing because most fruits are perennial, which is one of the things I like about it. But I am growing some lemon drop melons here on this cattle panel trellis. And there's some weeds down there, not gonna lie, but in there some really happy growing vines. I grew these last year. They're so good. It's a type of a watermelon that's lemon yellow, but it also has a sort of a tangy citrusy taste, which I love. At first I was a little worried about transplant shock with these vines when I planted the seedlings into the ground. I don't think I did a great job of hardening them off before planting them, but they've recovered. We've had mild enough weather and now they're really starting to take off. And that's it. That's the last of my own backyard fruit grove. And as you can see, there's not an orchard in sight. It's just a regular suburban backyard. I do have this kitchen garden area, but as you can see, most of my fruit plants are out in the landscape with my regular garden plants. And so really that's what I love about growing fruit. That's what I love about edible gardening in general, is that you would never know that I have all these edible plants until you look a little bit closer. So I really encourage you to do the same. Look around your yard, see where you can insert a fruit tree or shrub or something edible into your landscape. So like I mentioned at the beginning, please let me know if you think I should be growing something else in my garden. I'm always up for suggestions, and as far as I'm concerned, every failure isn't really a failure. It's just an opportunity to try something new. So let me know what you think I should try next. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.